Okay, I am going to call the June 2023 Public Safety Meeting to order. I'm Lisa Dorsey, and I have with me Sheila Vaccaro. Nick Allen is absent. And we will start with the second item actually on the agenda. Any suggestions, petitions, comments by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Sure. I'd like to come up and state your name.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisa. I'm Patty Stanton, resident in the 500 block of Price Street. And I know we're not on the agenda. And this afternoon, I did get an email response from Mr. Metric about the follow-up email that I sent to the committee and to other members of the borough government regarding the first set of recommendations that the engineers made. Not in the second engineer's report, but in the first engineer's report. And Sean did indicate that he would have more information, but not by today. But those things, I don't want those things glossed over. They were to install a data-enabled speed display sign, not just bring one occasionally. Replace currently marked crosswalks with more visible crosswalks. Install a portable centerline mounted state law stop for pedestrian signs, which we were given to believe needed a PennDOT approval at the marked crosswalk locations, restriping the key intersections to include, this is verbatim from the engineer report, to include no parking zone and painted bump out areas with raised reflective delineators and police department enforcement. So that's why I'm here. Until today, I didn't hear from anyone, and we're not giving up on Price Street. The speed data sign was there for, I think it was 2 full weeks, 1 week on each side. I mean, I don't have an ability to take data, and I don't know if the sign takes data, but observationally, it seems to help. But as soon as it's gone, I guess somewhat predictably, drivers revert to doing what they do. I don't know what the solution is to that other than to put in traffic calming measures that are more effective. So I'll be back. Going to try to keep following up on this issue on behalf of the neighbors, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Sure.
My name's Jeff Allen. I live at 417 South Church. And I can tell you fundamentally one of the problems is there's a stop sign at Church and Price. And then there's a very long distance to a traffic light. And what happens is when they see and they're heading south that it's green, they try to make it. And a lot of people jump on the gas. As a matter of fact, they'd step on the gas so loud that some of these trucks coming from that area set off people's car alarms. That's how loud it gets because of them nailing the throttle. So what they're trying to do is beat the light. So if you put a stop sign halfway there, right, and clearly call it out, that would negate their ability to drive that, I don't know, what is it, 5, 6 blocks? Whatever, and try to do it as a drag race. And that's the reality of what's happening, at least on one section of what you mentioned.
I'm in concurrence with the statements that were just made by Patricia. And we have the same problem between Wayne Street and Bradford Avenue, as well know. I just want to make a couple of comments, okay? I appreciate the resources that the Borough of Westchester expended, the time that was spent by our council representatives and particularly the Safety Committee in reviewing our situation. But I just kind of walked away from the situation feeling that the gravity of our situation is not fully felt because none of you live on Price Street. One of my comments I had made earlier was, and I communicated several times with Sean about this, is that there were no videos taken and no sound measurements taken as part of the engineering study, which I would think in the year 2023 would be an essential component of any engineering study done. So I really think there's a certain degree of divorcement, from our problem because you are not there to witness it. And I'm hoping that maybe going forward, we can present that type of documentation to you so that finally some action will be taken. I also ran down some information, shared it with Patricia, that the state Senate has introduced legislation to allow municipalities to utilize radar in the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the only state of the 50 states that does not allow municipalities to utilize radar, which is kind of crazy. So I guess that will be going to vote to the full Senate in due course. And then hopefully the Borough of Westchester will find it in its wisdom to allocate budgets to acquire radar units to achieve better enforcement. I really don't have anything else to say except that I was cleaning the attic out the other night, and I pulled out a whole bunch of documents relative to work that was previously done on the whole Price Street issue, which to me is just a problem that won't go away in this town because I don't think we've really taken the time to sufficiently address it. And years ago, I did a survey of every residence on Price Street. I had 76 household responses. And I put together a spreadsheet. I presented to Borough Council. We use that as documentation to actually argue for the removal of the Route 100 designation coming through the Borough of Westchester. It took several years to do that. I'll be happy to share those results, although I will tell you the results are 20 years old, but nothing has changed. And I find that to be kind of astonishing. Two things have changed. Actually, we've gotten a stop sign at the intersection of Wayne and Price, and we got a stop sign at Church and Price due to our meeting warrants at those intersections. That's all I want to say, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. I can assure you that the committee and the borough has been taking your concerns very seriously. And as you already know, we have extended several resources in reviewing this, and we will continue to do that. So thank you for your patience. Any other comments? Okay, moving along to discussion items. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong. First, the monthly fire department, Chief Pelna.
Good evening, Steve Pelna, Fire Chief. So a couple of significant incidents from the last month. We had a vehicle fire where a commuter from Delaware was coming up 202, noticed a problem in their vehicle, and rather than pulling over in a less populated area, they pulled into a busy apartment complex parking lot. So unfortunately, the fire extended to 2 other cars before we got there. So just a public safety reminder to everybody, if your vehicle's having an issue, don't park it in a packed parking lot, please. Also, the 2 other incidents, we seem to see, whether it's coincidence or not, we had two incidents due to lithium-ion batteries, and we're seeing more of them. We're seeing an uptick. Both of these were traced back to batteries bought off of Amazon, and this is not anything against Amazon, but a lot of the batteries that are being sold on these websites are recycled. And in these 2 cases, one resulted in a house fire and the other resulted in a camper where a golf cart, it was one of those toy hauler type campers where the golf cart was inside of the camper, which extended to the camper. But in both cases, they were on charge, so they were overcharged, and the battery was not able to hold that. But certainly a fire hazard when we're talking about lithium-ion batteries specifically and overcharging them. So something to watch out for certainly in the future. I did put a notification out about our ISO designation being downgraded in a positive, or I should say upgraded, but the number is lower, a 3 or a 3Y on a scale of 1 to 10, putting us in the top 12% in Pennsylvania and the top 16% in the entire country, and we're 100% volunteer. So we're in a very small percentage of fire departments the ability or the service we deliver to our residents. So that's a huge accomplishment. We've been working on it for a number of years, but it ultimately, in turn, results in a savings to many residents on their homeowners insurance. Not all insurance companies participate in the ISO evaluation, but it's about 75%. So I encourage homeowners to check with their insurance company to see if it indeed will result in a deduction in homeowners premiums. So pretty exciting there that we're able to do that for everybody. Two upcoming events to put on the calendar. First, this Friday, the American Red Cross, in conjunction with Good Fellowship Ambulance, are holding a blood drive at the Fame Fire Company from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. So anybody out there that wants to donate blood, head on over to Fame Fire Company from 1 to 6 for American Red Cross and the Good Fellowship. And then our public information officer, Dave March, is hosting the National Night Out on August 1st. Always a great time at Henderson High School. This year it's in conjunction as well with our Parks and Recreation Department for Touch a Truck. So it's a 2-for-1 special with both events, but all the public safety entities are represented in the police department, fire, and EMS. So that's August 1st, 6 to 9 at Henderson High School. Hope to see you all there. Any questions for me?
I don't have any. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, Chief Moorhead.
Good evening, Jim Moorhead, Chief of Police. For the month of May, the police department responded to 3,389 calls for service, of which 2,500 and a little over 2,500 were in the borough. Going to the next page, the police department in May saw a rise in Part 1 or serious crime, and I'll explain that on the next slide. And if there's some good news, there's always good news. We had a decrease in Part 2 or nuisance crime, which was very good. You can see on this page here that assault was the culprit for the Part 1 crime. During the month of May, we saw an increase in assaultive behavior, mostly in the central business district, bar closing time, things like that. So we have more officers deployed up in the center of town during bar closing to try to be present during these times when alcohol-infused individuals think they can be Mike Tyson. So we're keeping a closer eye on that. And again, the Part 2 crime is a good thing to see that decrease, because that's usually where we see a lot of our destructive property crime, things like that. So that's all on the downswing. Is Ms. Stanton still here? Yes. She had asked a question about the speed sign in an email earlier, and I think this is obviously for her to hear, but it's also for council to hear. The new speed sign, which is moving around the borough to all of the traffic hotspots, not just concentrated at Price Street. The sign is proving to be effective for eastbound Price Street. We saw a 32.8% decrease in speed when people saw the sign. So the sign captures the speed of the vehicle and then whether it wavers its speed one way or the other. So eastbound, we saw a 32% decrease in speed when they saw the sign. Westbound was higher. We saw a 38.4% decrease. So the sign works. People do recognize it. And, obviously, without the sign there, then things probably would kind of go back to normal, right? But again, all the data we collected going eastbound and westbound, we're still seeing no speeding problem per se. I don't dispute residents' claims of traffic noise and things like that. And that's, again, a borough-wide problem. So we're trying to be creative on how to continue to answer the calls to enforce that kind of behavior. So we're still working on trying to have an impact on that. I'll take any questions you have.
The speedings, whatever the proper name is, and you said that's moving around the borough.
The speed sign, the
Yeah.
speed sign? Yes,
Will it continue? So will it eventually end up back on Price Street?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we have an ETA of when we think that'll be?
I don't have, and I wouldn't want to pinpoint an exact date of its return. I know there's 3 other locations that it's visiting right now.
Okay.
You know, I know we had it on Price Street for 2 weeks, but it may only be at this new location for a week based on the need. So to have an exact date of return to Price Street, I don't have that. But since we're 3 more locations to go for it being moved around before we go back to Price Street, I don't think it would be too long.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Clarification, can you talk a little bit about permanently mounted speed signs?
Mhm.
And are there any anywhere in the borough currently? And do you see any prospects of future signage?
I don't see the borough investing in permanent signage. There are certain resident groups that go in and purchase, and then they get the approval of a council or a board of supervisors to mount such signs. We have 2 signs like that. One is permanently broken, and we're just not going to be able to fix it. And then we have Public Works mount that temporarily to locations. We use them. They look permanent, but they do get moved around. So, you know, for us to invest in, you know, a $4,000 sign to be permanently mounted in a location, you know, that's, in my eyes, that's not fair to the rest of the residents of the borough. So,
Thank
yeah. So portable devices are going to be continuing the way that we move forward. We have 2 speed trailers. The newest one does all the data collection, which is very positive for us. And then we do have a speed sign board that would mount on a pole. And that, although looks permanent, it is very temporary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Okay. 3A EMS report, Chief Brogan.
Good evening, Chaz Brogan, EMS Chief from Good Fellowship Ambulance. We responded to 623 total calls in the month of May, 185 of which were in the borough. Notably in May, what we start to see is that transition of our college population moving out, and that's reflected in here. If you look at days of the week, our weekends come down a little bit on our call volumes. The drug and alcohol indicators come down a little bit. So that's the transition we saw there in May, and you'll see that through the summer. And if we trend our call volume, we typically dip during the summer, pick back up in August. So other than that, nothing else really extraordinary on this report. The only things I want to mention, we had National EMS Week in May, 2 events. Chester County EMS Council had their awards banquet. We recognized 9 of our providers for cardiac arrest saves, life-saving clinical excellence, stuff like that. So kudos to them. We also had our open house, which was a great event. I know I saw the mayor there. So that was a great event, participation from the other disciplines as well, and looking to do that again next year. So any questions for me at all?
Don't have any.
All good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, 3D, schedule a public hearing to adopt an ordinance to recognize the authority of the Westchester Fire Department and volunteer fire companies operating within the borough of Westchester to seek reimbursement for hazardous abatement incidents, environmental incidents, fire safety and rescue responses from third parties. That was a mouthful, Mr. Metrick.
So if this, if this looks familiar, it's because it was on our agendas last month and we didn't get through approval because there are 4 things that we have to talk about that the solicitor instructed me to get feedback from council before we move forward with this particular ordinance. This is an ordinance that would allow fire department to recoup certain costs that they incurred from damaged and used equipment at fire scenes. And it would be part of that money would not be obtained from the owners or the business owners, but rather from the insurance companies that would pay out the damage claims at those scenes. So we're not going after, the fire department's not going to be going after homeowners and residents for this money, but they're going to be looking at the overall insurance claim to get the money from. And that's actually one of our issues. Section, in the handout I put at each of your desks is highlighted sections of the ordinance. And I just covered the facts that are in Section 2C, that the costs can only go after in the fire department service area from the applicable insurance company / carrier. And that was something that I'd like to get your nod on and approval on before we go forward, that's how we want to do it.
Can you, I'm not sure I'm following you, Sean.
On Section 2, recovery of costs,
Right.
on the back page, the highlighted Section C.
Oh, okay. The way this is written makes sense. Like we would only go up to the policy limits.
Mhm.
We wouldn't go beyond that.
Mhm.
Makes sense to me. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I think this one is the easy one.
Okay.
Easy one of the four. Okay, we can go on to D then. The solicitor said you don't really need a resolution of Borough Council. If you don't want to have Borough Council involved on authorizing the fee schedule of these reimbursements, you don't want another piece of actionable item. You don't have to do that. It could be something that the fire department maintains and is maintained in the borough office, and council doesn't have to approve by resolution the fee schedule. So that was something else Kristen wanted your feedback on.
My question is, how did it end up with council? I mean, did it go to the fire department first? And
Why is it in this draft?
yeah,
It's in this draft because this is fashioned after what West Goshen Township did. And so there were conversations at the council level, at the Board of Supervisors level in West Goshen Township about these items. And these are items that Kristen wants to make sure council is okay with.
If I could, just on that one, Kristen sat with us as we went through our coalition meeting, and everybody has different opinions, and it was the opinion of the board that they wanted to set the fee schedule. So we're modeling our fee schedule after PA Fire Recovery Services, which is who we want to engage with to be the billing agency. So those are accepted rates across Pennsylvania that they're utilizing, and other entities within the region are using. So, go ahead.
and the 15% that we saw in they're in the attachments that are online. The rates that were going to be collected were 5 to 15%.
Yes. Yeah. So I was trying to remember it. Yeah. Yeah. But they're going to be based on a reasonable cost for the replacement. So if it's a section of hose, what's a section of hose going for? We're not taking a section and marking it up 100%. It's reasonable to cover shipping costs and the administrative costs to replace it.
What I hear you saying is these are standards that have
Standard.
been.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps me. Thank you. Sheila, did you have any questions on D?
No.
All right, F.
Well, with D, does that mean the committee would like council to be involved in passing that resolution or not? I wasn't clear.
I don't really think it needs to be with us, but
Is there a preference by the,
My preference would be not to have a fee schedule in there, because materials change on such a regular basis, and we've seen, some things 20 to 50% in the last couple of years, post-COVID, supply chain issues and everything else. This way, if, we just want to be made whole. That's all we're looking for. So, right now the fee schedule is reasonable, and we don't want to have to come back every year and have you reapprove a resolution for, some oil dry went up 30 cents and we need to do a whole new fee schedule.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So get rid of that, right?
Yeah.
Then that is something, recommendation, why limit costs? They're doing.
Mutual aid.
Why would we take it? That's the basics of it.
Yeah, and really this one, it's not helping us as much as if we have other fire departments come in here, which happens. So I'll give you an example. The 24th of last month, we took the entire fire department out of service to go to Coatesville to the training center and train as a department all day. I had Gladwin Fire Department in here, a few others, Longwood. So they're us for the day. So this would give them the ability, if they lose some consumables, that they can. Yeah, exactly. Yep, 100%.
I don't like that at all. So I think I don't want it. I want it to be reciprocal. I don't like the idea that it's limiting. So,
Essentially striking that whole section then.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last thing is something that I guess the township wanted to put a put a consequence, I guess, in the ordinance. Ordinances can always be repealed. That's a consequence you can wield, but she just wanted to make sure you're okay with that language being in there.
So if I can just speak on this one real quick. I didn't agree with this one specifically. And actually we had a fire 2 years ago in West Goshen where I sent an invoice directly to, it was a commercial facility. And in that, I would be in violation of this ordinance now in West Goshen because I sent a bill directly from us to the entity. And really that was driven by them. The president of the company was there that night. You guys did a fantastic job. Send me a bill for anything that was broken. So I sent him a bill and he paid it. And we were able to recover damaged gear, damaged hose, fire extinguishers. Everything has a cost. So this would limit my ability. So my ask is to remove that one. I would say a vast majority of the time it would go through this process of the PA Fire Recovery Services, but if we have a quick option where we can get a quick turn on our loss, then why not?
it's fine.
We will, if the committee's okay, we will make these changes and bring this to the next week's work session to discuss a hearing date. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to 4A, approve 1-year extension of East Bradford Township Police Services Agreement.
Thank you. I guess going back, how long, Chief Moorhead, has this relationship been in effect with East Bradford Township? It's 1990 that East Bradford's contracted with Westchester Borough for comprehensive police services. The current agreement expires December 31st of this year. The proposal is to extend the existing agreement without changes to any of the management provisions in that agreement for an additional year at a 4% increase in the costs. The reason we're suggesting to do that is that we're in active labor contract negotiations with the union. So what we can do then is next year, go back to East Bradford Township and negotiate a contract based upon actual numbers that we know we're going to anticipate for the next whatever the term of the agreement will be. So we don't have to guess at what those costs are going to be or have our East Bradford Township negotiations somehow counter influence our labor contract negotiations. It's just better to take those, as many variables out of the equation as you can. So just for context's sake, when this agreement came into effect in 2020, the cost charged to East Bradford Township rose 11%. And then in the second year of the agreement, the cost rose 3.25%. The third year of the agreement, cost rose 4%. And in the final year of the agreement, which is this year, the cost rose 3 7/8%. So I think a 4% increase is a fair number for both sides. And I think this agreement puts us in a better position to negotiate next year with East Bradford.
I don't have any, you answered my question, so I don't have anything additional.
That's good.
Okay, moving on to 4B, approve the 2023 Public Safety and Quality of Life meeting minutes.
Approved.
Approved. Any other business? Okay, just want to apologize to everyone for missing last month. I was traveling literally on business the whole month, and that evening got away from me, so apologies for not being here. Thank you.